They said I wasn't ambitious enough, that I was too soft, too sentimental. They said she needed more. More money, more sparkle, more something. But they didn't know what I was building in silence. They didn't know what I had buried in me. She didn't wait to find out. She chose what glittered and walked away from what was still growing. Funny, she left before the bloom, before the numbers, before the news. They say love shouldn't be measured in numbers, but sometimes numbers tell you who is really counting. My name's Savannah Brooks. I'm 29. I live in Portland, Oregon. And this is the story of how her absence became my breakthrough. Growing up in a small town just outside of Portland, I always felt like I was being gently nudged into someone else's dream. Not in a cruel way. My parents weren't overbearing, but there was this quiet, consistent pressure. You know the kind. The kind that's hidden in smiles, in the way your mother says, she's always been the responsible one. To strangers at grocery stores. The kind that sits at the dinner table every night in the form of conversations about pre-med programs, job security, and planning for the future. I was supposed to become a pharmacist. Or a nurse. Something that sounded safe, practical, reliable. And for a while I played along. I went to Oregon State, signed up for the prerequisites, and even bought those heavy textbooks that smelled like paper cuts and despair. But every time I walked into a lecture hall, my chest would tighten. Not with fear, but with resistance. It felt wrong. Not challenging, just hollow. What I really wanted. I wanted to create. To build something digital. I didn't know what exactly, but I loved how design and tech blended. I'd get lost for hours sketching wireframes, studying user experience, playing with color schemes like they were puzzle pieces. But when I told my parents I was thinking about switching majors to digital product design, my mom blinked like I'd spoken another language.
Design?
Like posters? My dad had looked over his glasses and said, "You don't want to do something real?" They didn't say no outright. That's not how they worked. Instead, they called it just a phase. She's just taking a break. That's not a real degree, but let her explore. We don't talk about that anymore. I kept going, though. Quietly. Got through school. Interned at a small UX agency. Made just enough to cover rent and some really bad grocery decisions. Why did I think boxed wine and popcorn was a dinner combo? But I was doing it, even if nobody was clapping. And then came Mason. He was charming in a familiar way, the kind of guy who knows exactly how to carry his confidence without choking a room with it. He worked in commercial real estate. Wore crisp button-downs even on Sundays. He'd say things like, "Let's split the bill," but always ended up paying anyway. We met at a networking event I'd almost skipped. He smiled, said I seemed genuine, and within a few weeks, we were inseparable. At first, he said all the right things about what I was trying to build. "You're building something? That's hot," he said the first time I showed him my prototype for a community-based budgeting app. He listened, or at least pretended to. He asked questions. Took me to coffee shops with fast Wi-Fi so I could work. But as months passed, something changed. Little remarks crept in. "So, when does this turn into money? Do you ever get tired of doing everything yourself? I mean, it's cute, but it's not forever, right?" We were still technically good. We laughed, shared playlists, had favorite diners. But underneath all that, I could feel him measuring me. Not with love. With expectations. I remember the exact moment things shifted for good. It was our 1-year anniversary, and I had made this whole plan. A cozy Airbnb in Hood River, homemade lasagna, candles, vinyl records, the whole thing. He seemed distant the whole time. Phone face down. Smiles delayed. After dinner, we sat on the porch and he said, "Save, I've been thinking. I just feel like we're in different places. I want something more stable. More certain." I asked, "Stable like a person?" He hesitated. "Stable like a lifestyle." That sentence still lives rent-free in my mind. Stable like a lifestyle. He didn't say I wasn't enough. But he didn't have to. He ended it like a breakup letter from someone who'd already moved out emotionally. There were no raised voices. No accusations. Just a quiet disconnection. The next week, I found out through a friend that he was seeing someone new. A dentist. lives in a glassy condo, drives a Lexus, owns 2 dogs with Instagram accounts. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just felt deraced. The worst part wasn't losing Mason. It was that sick little voice in the back of my head that whispered, maybe he's right. Maybe you should be more stable, more certain. I wish I could say I bounced back immediately, that I channeled my sadness into art, that I went on some empowering solo trip to Europe and found myself. But the truth was messier. I sank into work, canceled plans, ate cereal out of mugs, started second-guessing every color palette, every app feature, every pitch I wrote. And still, my family said nothing. My mom left voicemails that started with, "I saw your cousin Amy is engaged." My dad forwarded job postings at Walgreens, just in case you need something solid. But no one ever said, "I'm proud of you." No one said, "We see how hard you're trying." So I stopped looking for their approval. I stopped waiting for applause from people who couldn't see the stage I was standing on. I made a quiet decision. I wasn't going to chase anyone. Not Mason. Not validation. Not stability defined by someone else's checklist. I was going to build something real. For me. Even if no one noticed. The first few weeks after that decision were quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, like waking up to snow or sipping tea with a book in hand. No, this was the quiet of uncertainty. Of starting over without the drama of a collapse. The kind where nothing explodes, but everything still falls apart inside. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have investors. Hell, I didn't even have clarity. What I did have was my laptop, a barely functioning espresso machine, and a notebook full of doodles, budgets, and user journeys I'd scribbled down in cafes. At first, I told myself I'd just freelance for a while, take on some design gigs, build other people's visions until mine became clearer. And so, that's what I did. I worked out of my tiny studio apartment, barely 450 square feet, with a squeaky heater that sounded like it was sighing at me all winter. I took on odd gigs, logo redesigns, UI refreshes, one-page websites for therapists, yoga teachers, and Etsy shop owners. One of my first clients was Linda, a 68-year-old retired school principal who wanted to start a blog called Tech Without Tears, a space where seniors could learn how to use phones, tablets, and email without feeling dumb. She was sweet, but terrified of everything digital. "This machine hates me," she muttered on our first Zoom call, squinting so hard at her screen that I could see her glasses fog up. I showed her how to make folders, how to change fonts, how to upload images of her grandchildren. After our third session, she sent me an email. Subject line, "You brought my baby into my living room." The message said, "Today I opened my inbox by myself and saw an email from my son, with pictures." I cried so hard I scared my dog. "You didn't just teach me buttons, you gave me back my connection." "Thank you, Savannah." I stared at that email for 10 minutes. That night, something shifted. Maybe it wasn't glamorous. Maybe I wasn't funded. But I mattered to someone. That one email became the seed. What if I could do this, but for more people? What if I created a simple platform that helped seniors and even non-tech people feel seen in the digital space? I called it Ease In. A blend of UX tutorials, one-on-one coaching, downloadable guides, and video calls. All designed to demystify the internet for the people who felt like they'd been locked out of it. It was small at first. I ran free pilot sessions on weekends. I posted on local Facebook groups. "Helping grandma set up her iPad? I got you." That was my first ad. It got 12 likes. I started getting calls from grandchildren, nieces, nephews. "Can you help my pop-pop learn Zoom? My mom keeps deleting her browser by accident. Can you teach my aunt how to use WhatsApp without panicking?" Each session felt like I was doing customer service for the soul. No one paid me big money, but they trusted me. And for the first time in years, I trusted myself too. I began waking up earlier, without an alarm. I'd light a candle, open my laptop, and just build. Not for claps. Not for investors. Just because it felt right. I started writing little blog posts on Medium, things like how to explain apps to your parents without losing your mind, and why seniors deserve good design too. I wasn't getting viral hits, but I was getting DMs, emails, notes. My grandma used her guide and joined our book club Zoom call. Your site is the first thing that made my mom feel less dumb. One email stood out. It was from a woman named Avery who wrote, "Your platform helped my dad text me again. I hadn't heard from him in 2 months because he forgot how to use his phone. You gave me my father back." I teared up reading that, sat on the floor of my kitchen with a cold cup of coffee, and cried for 10 solid minutes. Because this was never about apps or tutorials. It was about reconnection, dignity, presence, and suddenly it was purpose. As the months passed, I slowly upgraded, got a better microphone for tutorials, bought a proper desk chair, moved into a co-working space, just one desk, shared with 2 other women hustling on their own ideas. One was building an eco-friendly skincare line. The other ran a newsletter for nonprofit volunteers. We became each other's unofficial cheerleaders. Every little win mattered. 10 new users? We got donuts. A 5-star review? We high-fived like we'd won the lottery. A client paid on time? We played Beyoncé loud and danced like the rent had been canceled. The best part? No one here asked when I was going to do something serious. No one compared me to a dentist with a glass condo. They just saw me. Fully. Quietly. Authentically. And I began seeing myself that way too. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I was becoming someone I actually respected. Someone Mason would have never recognized. And honestly, that was the best part. It didn't make headlines. But it mattered. It started small. 12 seniors a week. Then 30. Then 80. By the end of the first full year, Eason had over 400 active users, most of them over 60, scattered across Oregon, Washington, and even a few in Arizona, where I learned retirement communities spread like wildfire and internet confusion was a daily struggle. I wasn't just offering tutorials anymore. I was running a movement. We added video walkthroughs, onboarding sessions, tech checklists with giant fonts and silly icons, a referral program, a blog written in plain language that sounded more like a conversation than a help desk. And it worked. By year 2, we were onboarding 1,200 seniors per month. Not all were paying yet, some came through grants and sponsorships, but our conversion rate hit 48%, and the email open rate was 78%. That's higher than some Fortune 500 companies. We started getting attention. A write-up in a small Portland tech magazine. A retweet from a senator's digital team. An email from a major retirement community offering to partner. And suddenly, my inbox was full of strange things. Investor interest. Collaboration requests. Speaking invitations. I didn't say yes to everything. I was cautious. Focused. Still designing all the onboarding flows myself. Still handling customer service tickets in between calls. Still waking up at 6 a.m. to test button placements before launch days. It was exhausting. But I loved it. I hired my first full-time team member, Jamie, a UX writer who left a corporate job just to work on Eason. Then came Zoe, a support lead from Kansas who'd helped her own grandma get online using one of our early PDFs. We were scrappy but soulful. Efficient but warm. Every update came with a grandma test. If it confused my own Nana, we scrapped it. Revenue came slowly, then all at once. By year 3, we hit $600,000 ARR, annual recurring revenue. Still no outside funding. Still 100% user-driven. I finally got a proper office space, a bright, sunlit corner room in an old building downtown. Brick walls. Creaky wood floors. It wasn't flashy, but it felt like mine. The funny thing? Despite all this, my family still treated it like a hobby. At Thanksgiving, my uncle asked if I'd considered going back to school for a real career. My cousin, who sells insurance, laughed and said, "Still helping old people with their phones? Real noble work." I smiled, bit my tongue. At Christmas, my dad asked if I'd figured out what I want to do long-term. And my mom? She still forwarded job listings. "Savannah, this one's for a pharmaceutical copywriter. Good salary. You could write and be stable." Stable. That word again. No one in my family had ever asked for a demo of the platform. Not once. They didn't ask how many users we had, or what it felt like to be a female founder leading a tech startup with zero funding. They didn't see the grant I secured from the Oregon Department of Aging, or the time NPR reached out for an interview. All they saw was that I still lived in a modest apartment, that I didn't dress like a CEO, that I still brought a casserole in Tupperware instead of a store-bought pie. But you know what stung more? Mason. He followed me on LinkedIn. Quietly. No message. No comment. Just a silent watch from the shadows. I clicked on his profile once. He'd just been promoted, senior partner at West Ridge Realty. He wore a tailored suit in his photo, standing next to a Tesla, holding a reusable coffee cup like a prop. One of his posts read, "Chasing dreams is great, but stability builds legacy." It got over 500 likes. I didn't react, didn't comment, but deep down, I remembered that conversation on our anniversary porch. Stable like a lifestyle. Was that his legacy? A six-figure salary and a silent ex-girlfriend still coding into the night? I began to see it all differently. Mason didn't break me. He just showed me where I didn't belong. And my family? They didn't ignore me out of cruelty. They just didn't understand me. I was building something they couldn't Google. And if they couldn't Google it, they couldn't brag about it at family dinners. But I didn't need their applause anymore. Not really. Because one afternoon, while editing a client testimonial, I paused. It was a woman named Dolores, 72, from Albuquerque. She said, "I can now order my groceries. I can FaceTime my grandbaby. I can pay my bills online without calling my son in tears." I didn't think I'd get to be part of this century, but easing gave me my courage back. I sat there, headphones on, tears threatening the corners of my eyes. They didn't see me, but these people did. The ones who'd been forgotten, dismissed, laughed at for not knowing how to swipe up. And I realized maybe I didn't need to be seen in the rooms I was born into, because I had built a room of my own. And in that room, people were showing up. People were healing. People were reclaiming their place in the world. Even if my own family kept missing the point. Even if Mason still thought more meant money, status, or shiny things. I knew better now. More was purpose. More was dignity. More was building something that lasted whether anyone clapped or not. I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore, and I meant that in the best possible way. 6 months after the pitch in Chicago, my app, MindBloom, officially launched. What started as a scrappy vision scribbled in journals had turned into a full-fledged mental wellness platform funded by 3 major investors. The press caught on. My name started circulating in those 30 under 30 lists. Podcast invites, tech panels, conference keynotes. My inbox became a battlefield. But none of that compared to the moment I logged into my bank account one chilly Tuesday morning and saw the number. $4,781,294.17. I stared at the screen, laughed, cried, trembled. And then I closed the laptop, walked to the floor-length mirror, and said, "You didn't need to become someone else. You just needed time." For years, I had been haunted by Amelia's words, "I just need someone more established." Now, I was exactly that. And not because I'd hustled out of spite. I'd hustled because I finally believed I was worth betting on. I started investing quietly. Real estate in Arizona. A wellness cafe in Portland. Silent shares in a publishing startup. And with each new move, my confidence grew legs. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was choosing. The people around me noticed. Old friends who once saw me as soft suddenly wanted to reconnect. The same coworker who used to mock my meditation breaks now quoted my interviews. Even Amelia's best friend, Riley, the one who told me I should just let it go, messaged me on Instagram. "Girl, you're killing it. Amelia saw your Forbes article. She's been talking about you a lot lately." I didn't reply, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't hit a nerve. A familiar ache stirred, the echo of that old heartbreak. But it didn't swallow me. It couldn't, because I had stepped into a version of myself that no longer needed external validation. I was whole. And wholeness changes everything. One evening, while sipping a matcha latte at my favorite cafe, the same one I'd cried in when Amelia left, I overheard two students at the next table whispering, "Is that Savannah Brooks?" "I think so, she built Mindbloom. She's like a millionaire now." They weren't wrong. But the real flex? I'd built peace. Not just profit. I didn't expect to see her. Not in that dress. Not at that gala. But there she was. Amelia. Leaning against the champagne bar like it was a movie set, her red gown cascading down like molten silk. She hadn't changed much. Still beautiful. Still magnetic. But, for the first time, she didn't intimidate me. The room was buzzing with whispers. I had just stepped off the stage after receiving the Emerging Founder of the Year award. My face was still flushed from the applause, my heels clicking confidently across the marble as I headed for the exit. Then our eyes met. She blinked, then smiled, then walked over like she'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. "Savannah." Her voice still had that same soft lilt, but it cracked at the edges now. "I wasn't sure it was really you." I didn't return the smile, just raised an eyebrow. "It's me." She looked me up and down, the couture gown, the Cartier bracelet, the poise. And then she laughed, nervously. "You look incredible." "Thank you." I kept my tone calm, unreadable. "I've been following your journey," she said quickly, almost like a confession. "Mindbloom is amazing. I mean, you're everywhere. Forbes, TechCrunch. I even saw that profile on Vogue." I gave a polite nod. "It's been a busy year." A beat passed, the air thick with the unsaid. Then, she leaned in slightly. "You know, when we ended things, I always hoped you'd find your way. I didn't think you'd do it so fast." I wanted to ask her what she meant by find your way. Like I was lost. Like she was ever the compass. But I didn't. Instead, I sipped my drink and asked, "What brings you here?" "My firm's sponsoring one of the panels," she said. "I wasn't even supposed to stay for the gala, but I saw your name on the program, and—" Her voice trailed off. Her eyes searched mine. Something flickered. Nostalgia? Regret? "Savannah," she said quietly, "I made a mistake." There it was. The twist. The apology. The silent offer to rewind time. But I wasn't interested in reruns. "No, Amelia," I said gently. "You made a choice. And so did I." She nodded, wounded but trying to hold face. "I just thought, maybe we could get coffee sometime. Catch up?" I smiled, this time with kindness. "I appreciate the gesture, but I don't go backward." I turned to leave, heels echoing against marble, heart steady. But just before exiting, I glanced back. She was still standing there. Still beautiful. Still searching for something more. But this time I knew it was never about what I lacked. It was about what she couldn't see. And now, the world saw me. But more importantly, I finally saw myself. I left the gala feeling lighter than I ever had before. It wasn't the award or the press or the compliments that lifted me. It was the peace. The clarity. The final exhale of a chapter long overdue for its ending. For years, Amelia's words had haunted me. "I just need something more." At the time, they had shredded my self-worth, making me believe I wasn't enough, not ambitious enough, not rich enough, not future-proof enough. But that night, I realized what she really meant. She hadn't been looking for more. She was looking for validation through money, status, perfection. And ironically, all the things she thought I lacked were the exact things I found once I walked away. I didn't build Mindbloom to prove her wrong. I built it because I had something worth saying, something real to offer the world. The late nights, the rejections, the credit card max-outs, the shaky launches, they weren't for revenge. They were for me. And in doing so, I became the woman she never saw coming. Now, I was working with wellness centers across the country, launching a mental health program in underserved communities, and negotiating a licensing deal that would triple our reach. My days were filled with impact, my nights with intention. My circle had grown smaller, but deeper. My heart no longer begged for love, to validate its rhythm. I had learned how to choose me. Weeks after the gala, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was an old photo, one of Amelia and me at the start of our relationship, taped to a handwritten note. You were always more than enough. I just couldn't see it. I hope the world does now. I folded the note carefully. I didn't cry. Not out of coldness, but because I had already shed those tears years ago. I placed the photo in a drawer and smiled. Not because I missed her, but because I didn't. Amelia had been a catalyst, not a companion. A mirror, not a soulmate. And her absence gave me room to build a life no longer defined by someone else's standards. The next morning, I stood on stage in front of 3,000 aspiring founders, delivering a keynote titled, "Becoming the Version of Yourself They Never Believed In." I spoke not of heartbreak, but of resilience. Not of revenge, but of rebirth. And when the applause roared again, this time louder than ever, I knew one thing for sure. I was never too small. She just didn't have the vision to see the size of my becoming. And now, I don't wait to be chosen. I choose. My peace. My purpose. My power. Always. Sometimes, when someone says you're not enough, what they really mean is you're not what they imagine success should look like. But that's not your flaw. That's their limitation. Amelia walked away searching for more, blind to the quiet fire I was building. And in doing so, she taught me the most valuable lesson. Validation that comes from others can vanish, but the kind you give yourself? That's untouchable. We live in a world that often confuses value with appearance, potential with perfection, and love with leverage. But real growth starts when you stop proving your worth to people who only see you as a maybe, and start showing up fully for the person who always knew you were destined for more, yourself. Let them walk away. Let them underestimate you. Let them talk. Because one day, they'll watch you rise and realize they lost someone they never even truly saw.